recording, and we'll get
Okay.
into it, and she can join in when I
Okay. Sure.
invite talk about the other pushback she got in her story. So let me just pull up my notes here real quick. So first, do you want to respond to? There was some YouTube criticism that came in on my first report about Kelly Patrick's story concerning Dan Casares. One was from a woman user named Connors, uh, and I'll edit this in properly, but I want to get it right, and I'll have a screenshot of it in the piece. So the user was, yeah, Connors Works. Can you tell me who is this user that was jumping into attack Kelly Patrick and defend Dan Casares?
Well, first, this is all Casares and company know how to do is attack, and this all they know how to do is be bullies and try to silence people. So this is par for the course. I never heard of Kelly Connors in my life until Kelly Connors called me. And Kelly Connors started telling me that she was in a sexual relationship with Dan, that he said he was going to leave his wife, that Dan was controlling her money through a power of attorney and a special needs trust, and she needed help getting out away from Dan Casares. And I said, okay, I'm willing to help you. And I spoke to my attorney and my private investigator to see if we could help this lady out of this problem. She found our website. She confirmed that Casares bragged about his long-term sexual relationship with Catherine Clover and that he talked about Dawn Pasella quite often. That here's a lady that has been deceased for almost a decade, right? And he's constantly bringing her up in conversations. And Kelly Connors said that she became afraid of Dan partially because of his obsession with these Clover and Dawn Pasella. And then later, and she sent me quite a lot of information, emails, texts. I can publish it or give it to you. We can put it on our website. And later she said, oh, delete everything I told you. Dan has a power of attorney. He's going to find out we're talking. I can't talk to you. And she also said that Dan Casares stole thousands of dollars from her, that he had set up this special needs trust with the Reminger law firm where John Patrick works, and that Dan had dipped into this thing and stolen some money, and that Kelly Connors had all this leverage over Dan Casares because if this became public, or if the bar association knew, Casares could lose his license. So she basically said that she had this great leverage over him, but just wanted to be done with it. And all of a sudden, she apparently now switched. She's like Dan Casares' great defender, not his wife, by the way. She's not saying anything, but the girlfriend is involved. Interestingly, let's talk about attorney Jay Schlackett. Jay Schlackett represented Catherine Clover, who testified at both of my trials. Mark Bennett said Clover committed perjury. Jay Schlackett is also the attorney that helped Dan Casares and Susan Casares with a separation agreement because Susan found out about the affair with Clover. And so Jay Schlackett is critical to this whole cover-up because he's Catherine Clover's lawyer, and he's Dan Casares' lawyer, and he's Sue Casares' lawyer, and Kelly Connors has all these documents because Dan promised to marry Kelly Connors, and she said, are you sure? And he said, oh, I'm done with my wife. And so she's got all these documents. I have active litigation going with Kelly Connors. I filed a lawsuit against her. I don't want money from her. I just want these documents. This sounds like really interesting stuff that the senior assistant Ohio attorney general is driving to Youngstown having an affair with this lady. And according to Kelly Connors, when Ralph Infant and others were prosecuted, Dan was living up in hotels and entertaining Kelly Connors and having Kelly Connors help put documents and evidence together, which totally breaks the chain of custody in a criminal matter. So Casares is leaving records in a hotel room with these women and having these affairs. And so it is dynamite what Kelly Connors knows. And I guess maybe she got afraid, or maybe she was just using this to tell Dan, look, if I help Tony, you're sunk. I don't know. All I know is I never heard of Kelly Connors. She called me and man, did she give me a wealth of information. But now she's posting very negative things. Incidentally, in terms of the specifics of what Kelly is posting, she's saying on Facebook and on YouTube and on these platforms, well, you were convicted in federal court and your federal conviction was upheld. So it doesn't really matter what happened at the second trial. And that echoes what Dan has been saying. But under the law, when there's a subsequent trial on the same charges, any earlier rulings are called into question because the results of the second trial, which establish, we believe establish actual innocence, same charges, same prosecution team, call into question those earlier federal rulings. And also, so not only is there a second trial with opposite results in my case, but within the last 18 months, the FBI and the Justice Department have admitted lying about evidence in my case. And they've informed a federal judge in Erie, Pennsylvania named Susan Paradise Baxter. They told Judge Baxter, hey, can you vacate all those rulings in our favor for 8 years? We made false statements. So the notion that the earlier rulings should govern is just nonsense under the law. I mean, there's a famous case called Messenger versus Anderson from 1912 that says when there's a subsequent trial and there's substantially different evidence introduced, it calls into question the earlier rulings and the earlier decisions. Last point is the federal courts have never held an evidentiary hearing. So I was convicted in federal court. Then I go to a second trial on the same charges, prosecuted by the same prosecution team, Mark Bennett and Dan Casares. I'm exonerated, but I had never been able to go back to the first court, Don Nugent's courtroom, and say to Judge Nugent, let me present the same proof of innocence. So part of the reason there's all this litigation going on is because the judge wouldn't let me present proof of my innocence in his courtroom. And part of it is because the government has been lying continuously about evidence. Now, the FBI is saying that they were unaware of 10,000 documents in their own record system until last year, in my case, which started in 2008. So these false statements by the government is what's prolonged the litigation. It's not like I like suing Mark Bennett or I really want to, spend $505 on filing fees and appellate fees. But the false statements by the government have prolonged the litigation. Really, if the government followed the law, I would have never gone to jail because Mark Bennett and Dan Casares found out that Catherine Clover committed perjury during the first trial, and they did not withdraw the false testimony. So anyway, all the subsequent litigation that's taken place in my case is a result of the prosecutors hiding evidence, making false statements by their own admissions. This is what they've said. So Kelly Connors is now echoing the sort of framework that Dan Casares uses, which is, well, you're convicted and you should just forget about it. Your claims have no merit. And that's just nonsense. And by the way, if you don't like 10 years of litigation, one thing to do is not hide evidence in criminal cases and not have a sexual relationship with a government witness.
So also have with us Kelly Patrick, who came forward and was the subject of the first part of this look into the skeletons in Dan Casares' closet. Kelly, I got some very disturbing pushback on your story from your mother. Private messaged me, told me essentially that you had borderline personality disorder and made grandiose claims, that you were mentally unstable, and pointed me towards an injunction that she had filed against you in Florida, and all trying to essentially like put in my head, oh my goodness, who is this lunatic that I've amplified? And I read through the injunction. Interesting thing is, you provided it to me in totality, and it certainly contains some very intimate things, that problems you were going through with your family that you told me about in our interview. So I wasn't necessarily shocked to learn about them, but I was extremely shocked and disturbed to see a parent who, if you genuinely think that your daughter is making up like in very harmful, damaging stories, not only to her own life, but that damages every other person who makes legitimate claims. It was very disturbing to me that like her reaction to that was to file uh, a restraining order against you and then come out publicly attacking you. And what's more is when I read through that case report and other things that she wrote in there in letters and notes, and what she submitted to support the injunction, I would see things about how claiming that you had false memory syndrome, in her interview, or in her message to me, and also in, implied in public comments, was like, "Oh, you're unstable, and that's why you have false memories." When I started searching those terms together, I discovered a cottage industry of criminal defense attorneys who specialize in defending against sexual abuse, as well as people who offer expert testimony. And I also learned that there was a place called the False Memory Institute. It was disbanded in 2019 because it has largely been discredited by psychologists that that's a thing that really happens. And, it would be a shocking thing for me to find out that this was all true, that you had fabricated everything you came forward and told me. I invited you into my home. I had a very good impression of you, similar to Tony. This whole case would be very rattling if it turned out that I was wrong about both of you. So I wanted to give you a chance to respond to those allegations and the charges against your credibility, and make a case for why they're not true. And it's of course your choice how much you want to go into how any personal abuse you suffered. Um, but I wanted to just open the floor for you to respond to this in whatever way you wish.
Well, thank you for letting me have that opportunity to defend myself. So basically, for 2 years, beginning in 2019, I recovered some memories of my childhood sexual abuse, and I started writing them letters. I wrote them letters through 2019 and the beginning of 2020, until I found out that my ex husband John and my mother were talking. So it kind of threw me for a loop to wonder why they were talking. And then a couple months later, he filed the second litigation. So I was thrown into the court case again, same characters, and it became a hot topic that John was talking to my mother. So for me, to have to understand why my mother was talking to John, I had to go as deep as I could possibly go. What was connecting the two of them to have a relationship together? Because I'm no longer in the picture. I didn't talk to my mother. I don't talk to John. Why did the two of them need to talk? And it came down to money. So basically, in 2020, I uncovered that my mother and John had worked together several years ago to change the will and the trust of my grandparents so that my mother could get that money. So, June 2020, I figured that out and I wrote her, I'm sorry, June 2021, I wrote her a letter that I connected with the bank that had proof that she had stolen money. 5 days later is when she filed that stalking injunction. So I had already been writing them for 2 years, and she never did anything. It was only 5 days after I connected with the bank and had proof of what happened is when she filed the stalking injunction. So I wasn't even served. My 15-year-old son was served by the sheriff, and I had a court hearing in a week. So I filed a motion to attend by Zoom because it was down in Florida, and I filed a motion to extend the time. He denied the extending of the time, but he allowed me to be there by Zoom. I had no time to prepare. I had like less than a week to prepare for this. So I don't care. I just let it go. I didn't really defend myself all that much. I did say in the hearing that my mother voluntarily inserted herself into my litigation in 2020. So it wasn't like I was writing letters to nothing. She was talking to the people in the court litigation. They would tell me what she was saying, and then I would write her. But the judge still allowed the stalking injunction to happen, and that's what happened. So I'm not allowed to talk to her, but suddenly, somehow, she found my interview, your YouTube channel, and then decided to talk about my mental instability. But basically, it's just proving. Go ahead, what? No, it's just proving to me that I'm right. I'm right about what I'm saying. I'm right about her and John working together. Because why else would she have to come out and try to attack me and um, make me look like I'm the bad guy. The video had nothing to do with her. I didn't even talk about my family.
I think the intersection, though, of Kelly Connors, who's posting on your channel, and Kelly's mother, who's posting on your channel, is John Patrick. We know that John Patrick uses his legal training at Reminger to set up these trusts. Okay. And I haven't pieced all of this together, but what we do know is Dan Caceres controls Kelly Connors' money through a special needs trust. We know that Kelly's family had some wealth and that nobody knows anything about it. It's hidden in some trust. And we also know, by the way, that there's been millions of dollars of restitution collected in these criminal cases similar to mine by this task force. And from the communications we've received from lenders, nobody's ever gotten any of this money. And we've got this ledger where all this magically money is being used for things that aren't going to victims. So judges ordered victims to get money, which are these banks, and they're not actually getting the money. So there's a lot of shenanigans with special needs trusts and powers of attorney and money that's all of a sudden in a trust. And good old John Patrick at Reminger is in the middle of all this stuff. So one of the reasons why Kelly Connors was so interesting, and again, I never met her in my life or never heard of her in my life. She comes forward and says, "Oh, John Patrick and the Reminger law firm are creating these instruments or these trusts that it's hiding money." So this is one of the things that our investigative team is working on. And with this Caceres guy, I mean, it's like pulling a thread on a sweater where it just you just get a bigger and bigger ball. So we've been following all these different leads, all these different illicit sexual relationships he's had. We're following money. We're following misconduct in a myriad of cases. We're really been relentless for years, just digging and digging and digging, getting public records, documents, more people come forward. But what's gone on with Kelly is wrong. If I would just add that Kelly's been very badly treated by these characters, and it's outrageous and it's wrong. And it is a heck of a thing for a mother. I mean, I come from a very loving family. I'm very fortunate, but I'm reading this stuff, and it's a heck of a thing to read that her mom would actually put this on a public platform. So I would just like to say shame on these people for doing this.
And Kelly, just for the record, is someone who's supposedly this as unstable as I am led to believe by their comments and the private message I received from your mother. Um, you have unsupervised custody of your children.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. Is there anything else that you can say in defense of, like, are you managing a business effectively? Do you have a any documented history or problems, or are you actually somewhat thriving in your endeavors lately?
I own a business and I'm a pillar of the community here in Olmsted Falls. But I also have a program that I'm in the process of getting approved by the Supreme Court of Ohio to be able to train and teach lawyers and judges about trauma, narcissism, self care, burnout. So I'm really looking forward to being able to take the court litigation that I had to go through for many years with John and turn it into something positive and hope to be able to make some sort of change in the way that the domestic relation courts are handled. That would be my ideal goal, would to be at least enlighten some of those lawyers to what's really going on.
So, for anyone who is interested in following your ongoing legal struggles in various venues, uh, do you want to talk about what cases you have going on right now?
Yeah, I have civil litigation going on right now against Dan and the city of North Olmsted um, for the obstruction of justice from the 2009 assault. So I just did an amended complaint. It's just in the paperwork stage right now, the back and forth. But I feel like we have a pretty solid case, a lot of evidence. So that's in the process right now.
Well, we've got a blizzard of litigation going, and we're going to do every legal initiative that we can until this misconduct and criminal activity by Caceres is fully exposed. I mean, just a couple of things. First of all, think of a triangle. We got federal court, state court, and this task force, which is at a different location. So for a decade, Mark Bennett and FBI agent Jeff Kassouf, have been saying, well, we never put any federal evidence at the task force. You're crazy, Tony. You're making up stuff. Dawn Pasella never had any access to federal evidence. She didn't give you any evidence. And then it turns out that all the documents that we've amassed through my private investigator, Bob Frederick, and some of our own initiatives confirm that before the first trial, the government put all the evidence in my case at this task force. I mean, so we have litigation with the task force. Now, interestingly, this is the case where a judge said, wait a minute, the government's own arguments are contradicted by the government's own documents. So the FBI is putting in a motion that they didn't send any evidence to the task force. And I'm attaching an FBI document that says they put 17 boxes of evidence at the task force. And so a judge was like, wait a minute, this is crazy. So appointed, and I'm very fortunate, one of the largest law firms in the world, God knows what they've spent on this case, litigating this matter. So the largest law firm called Covington and Burling comes in, and they look at this stuff, and they cannot believe it. That case in Erie, we're asking for the tapes that Dawn made, which was an illegal intrusion into our trial preparation. We don't have them. We've never gotten them. Nobody knows where they are. The FBI agent, Kassouf, and Mark Bennett said, well, we sent them to the task force. They listened to these tapes and then sent them to the task force, and they don't have them right now. So there's a big argument about, well, how do you dispossess evidence? I mean, the government's trying to tell a federal judge that we don't want to give the evidence, so we send it to the other building. And there's no basis in law for doing it. It's just part of the win at all costs style of prosecution in this country. So the big one is there's a whole case about evidence, about these emails between Caceres and Clover. The federal prosecutor, Bennett, knows she's lying during the first trial. And she, to her credit, wants to go back on the witness stand and correct her false testimony. And Caceres and Bennett say, no, we'll lose the case. That's the whole point in America. You're not supposed to win, prosecutors are not supposed to win convictions and put people in jail on testimony that they know is false. But Mark Bennett didn't want to lose, and he didn't want to admit he was wrong. So they knowingly used perjured testimony and have failed to withdraw it. So it's created all this litigation. So the answer is we've got litigation about evidence in my case. We've got two appellate rulings we're waiting for in Ohio from courts. Caceres has used a private Yahoo email account to conduct official business and carry on these romantic relationships with Kelly Connors and Lisa Lau and Rose Kapatursky. I mean, we've got a whole myriad of women that we know that he's had these illicit relationships with, funded with taxpayer money. And he's using this Yahoo email account. Foremost is Catherine Clover, who was a witness, not only in my case, but in a dozen of these cases. She was go to the grand jury. She becomes a paralegal inside the prosecutor's office. So we've got litigation. We want the Ohio Attorney General and the county prosecutor to search. We're not saying every one of his Yahoo emails is public record, but we're saying it should be searched to determine if it involves official government business. I have a case in the Sixth Circuit right now. I'm saying I shouldn't have to do any legal work. Why is the U.S. Attorney in Cleveland not withdrawing perjured testimony? Why are they not investigating criminal activity by Mark Bennett and Dan Caceres? Wiring up Dawn Pasella to get our trial strategy, having her donate money towards our legal fees, having her hang out with us pretending to be a paralegal. This is a crime. This is an intrusion into the right to have a lawyer present when the government is interviewing you or the government is interacting with you after you're indicted. So I'm facing all these charges. It's the nation's largest mortgage fraud case. I could go to jail really for the rest of my life. And they find out their case is bad and they don't want to admit they're wrong. So then they send Dawn in to figure out our trial preparation. It's illegal. It's never been investigated. So I have a thing in the Sixth Circuit saying, why are we doing any legal work? Why doesn't the Justice Department withdraw false testimony, investigate Dawn Pacella's death? And why is this case going on when everyone knows, and we have 600 pages of emails on the freetonyviola.com website, between Caceres and Clover. She's not a fact witness. She's not just some witness that's coming in. That's what they portrayed her as. She's just going to come in and tell you what happened. She was buying houses. She's going to tell you that no. She was in a sexual relationship with Caceres, and she's a paralegal inside the prosecutor's office. Her resume said she worked there for 2 years. Dan Caceres lists out all the cases she's working on. This is my co-defendant. accessing all the evidence, Attorney Jay Schlackett admits in writing that Clover destroyed evidence in my case. And we had missing computers, things vanished. Poof. No evidence anymore, Tony. Sorry. In my case. And Schlackett says, well, Clover was destroying evidence, but she didn't mean to hurt me. She was just trying to help herself. Well, why on earth are these prosecutors allowing my co-defendant, even if they're a government witness or cooperating, why does she get to ask? And Dan says, well, bring it right over. Can I get the tubs of evidence? Oh, yeah, I got all these emails. You can read it yourself. Nothing better, by the way, than Dan Casares' own words. Just spectacular. He's incredibly reckless. And the stuff he puts in writing is fantastic. Nothing I could say is better than what he said. So anyway, we've got this question to the federal court. Why am I doing legal work? So anyway, we'll see what happens with that. And we have several open cases about records that we're trying to get additional records. We're on a big casting a wide net to get records because they were hiding evidence. This task force was prosecuted by a multi-jurisdictional task force. So they're all saying, well, the task force, we didn't run it. So like the attorney generals, like she said that in oral argument, Ann Yakshaw. Well, yeah, we set it up, and we were part of it, but we don't have to search the records there. We don't have to
Yeah,
go.
I'm going to go into detail about what I've seen from those cases. I want to let people know like that this fight is continuing, that you're still in the courts, and attention should be paid to these cases in all these states. And I'll do my best. Like I said, I'm going to try and get the word out and give the press one good faith attempt to correct this oversight.
Right.
And
But one of the reasons there's so much litigation is because nobody wants to be responsible for the task force. So I've got to go to every constituent agency. I got to go to the FBI and ask them for records. I got to go to the county prosecutor and sue these people when they don't produce the records. And I got to go to the Ohio Attorney General's office. And I got to go to the HUD Inspector General. And I got to go to the Shaker Heights Police Department and the Solon Police Department. All these different government law enforcement agencies that were part of the task force. Nobody's willing to search the task force, so then I had to go to each one of them. The answer is, with a blizzard of litigation, it's culminating in what? In an effort to throw my conviction out, but not just mine. Dawn Pasella told me, and I believe she's right, that the evidence at my second trial is not Tony specific. It's not like a DNA case. Oh, this guy didn't rape the lady, it's someone else. Whether or not these lenders were duped into making no money down loans is the fundamental question. At my second trial, the jury said no. When we had all the evidence that Dawn gave us and presented it in court, 12 jurors said no. The banks aren't victims, and Tony's innocent, but it's not just me. We want to reopen all of these cases. We want to join up with all of these people who were wrongfully prosecuted, particularly where Catherine Clover testified, because she was having a romantic relationship with Dan Casares and testified over and over again as a type of a professional witness for the prosecutors. She would say what Mark Bennett wanted. She would say what Dan Casares wanted. So they needed witnesses to tie people to scams, and she would go in and say, "Sure, I'll say that. This is fraud. I'm an expert. I went to law school." So anyway, long story short is we're trying to take all of the information that we've gathered. It's applicable to about 1,000 cases. A lot of people may have their case reopened or their convictions vacated once we culminate in this filing. So everything we have, we will share with everyone. And we've had a lot of folks that are helping us and giving us information too. So it's become this big tent. It's become a big crusade. So I've got litigation going, but hopefully it helps others and it leads to reopening all of these cases.
And Kelly, do you think you would be coming forward about the cover up you experienced, Dan, allegedly abusing his privilege as prosecutor to protect his brother and keep you trapped in a toxic marriage for however much longer you did?
Say that again with
So,
Dan.
do you think you would have been kind of stepping out and calling out Dan Casares for what you think he did in your case if you hadn't encountered Tony Viola?
No, I never talked about it. I never talked about that day ever. It wasn't until John took me to the first litigation that he brought up the fight. And then I started talking about it. But even then, I just only answered the questions that I was asked, and I didn't offer anything further. So then again, when he started the second litigation in 2020, he kept mentioning it again, and then that's when he told the guardian ad litem that Dan actually did cover for him. And then I had already met Tony like 2 weeks before that, and so I told Tony what the guardian ad litem told me, and then that's when he told me what really happened was the obstruction of justice. So no, I would have never done any of that. Never done any of that.
And this
I didn't
gets
even know what
to
happened to me
well,
that
I
day.
just want to say this gets to what I hope will happen from exposing all of this and getting it taken seriously is that, yes, everyone involved in the mortgage task force that Tony was wrongfully prosecuted in will have their case examined, especially where Catherine Clover, Dan Casares, and Mark Bennett were involved. But there have to be so many more cases that have occurred over the course of this man's career between just the two incidents you speak of. If he abused his power in that way, it's pretty hard to believe that it hasn't happened a lot. And so it's another hope of mine is that more people who may have experienced things that they were afraid to come forward about because it's scary to come forward about a prosecutor. I hope they'll see more people are doing that.
And let me add something, if I may. As the real estate sales guy that was in jail for a decade and hanging out in the law library, right? I'm reading about court stuff. So when Kelly's telling me this, I'm saying you have what's called an equal protection claim. You have a constitutional violation. So, in other words, similarly situated people in our country are supposed to be treated the same under the law. So, when your husband beats the crap out of you and puts you in the hospital, okay, everyone else would go to jail, would be arrested and charged. Not John Patrick, because Dan Casares came in to save the day. And when you get busted with drugs, like John Patrick did, right? You get charged, right? Not in this case. So the issue that Kelly's raising in court, which is very important, is this equal protection. Supposedly, prosecutors aren't supposed to do whatever they want. Oh, well, I like this person. Let me help John Patrick because he's my brother, or he's my friend, or he's a guy that I want to protect. Oh, but this other person over here, we're going to put this guy in jail, or this lady in jail. So this is an equal protection claim. Kelly had a right to be treated like any victim of domestic abuse. And one thing that the cops maybe could do is not bring her back home to the guy that just knocked the crap out of her. They told her, oh, don't worry, you're going to be safe at home. We're going to take you home. Don't worry, you have all these injuries and you got to go back and get treatment, but don't worry today, you can just take it easy. He's not going to be there. And then he's there, sitting there smoking a cigar. I mean, this is a great thing. By the way, the Reminger law firm knows about this. We've made them aware of this. They don't want to do anything either. That's cool. No big deal. Oh, did he beat up his wife? No, that's okay. And so, but there's an equal protection claim here of Dan Casares abusing his authority to interfere in the normal uh, administration of justice. The country supposedly, I mean, we know it doesn't, but it supposedly operates on a principle called the fair administration of justice and equal protection under the law. That's what it says on the top of the Supreme Court, equal protection under the law. So here we have a claim in front of a judge. So let's see what happens. The other thing in Kelly's case that's powerful is that we busted the police department altering documents. When they first show up, she's a victim. So if she's a victim, that means there's a crime, right? There's got to be a crime if there's a victim. And then all of a sudden, she's not the victim anymore in these other versions of documents that we've gotten. So North Olmsted has really their own. Again, it's the Dawn rule where you destroy your opponent's case with their own documents. You destroy North Olmsted and the police department's credibility. There's nothing that Kelly could say or I could say. It's their own documents. They altered their own documents to cover for John Patrick because Dan Casares knows the police chief and knows the prosecutors, and they're all buddies. So, oh, did you get knocked around by your husband? Did you get beaten up? No big deal. Nobody cares. So this is a grave abuse of power. And if nothing else, hopefully we win these cases. But I've come to the conclusion that at least we're going to present it. If Don Nugent wants to say that it doesn't matter that Dawn Pasella died, and it doesn't matter that there was a second trial, and it doesn't matter that Catherine Clover and Dan Casares, go ahead, put it in writing. That's my theory. So we're going to present it. We're going to call them out on it. We're going to try to hold them accountable. We're going to do the best job we can to present a good case in court and hope for fairness by the judiciary, presume good faith, and hope for fairness. But at a minimum, we're creating a record of what went on. And Kelly is an inspiration to others, and I do believe others will come forward. I believe what this series is critically important. There's a lot of people who've been brutalized and victimized. In fact, Kelly and I have talked to some of them that won't come forward because they're afraid. But we believe that outing this and exposing this, we will get more and more folks to come forward because they've been mistreated and badly treated. And our movement, our crusade, it's open to everyone. We want to join forces with people and correct something that's unjust and wrong. It's never too late to do the right thing, and it's a long time coming, but we still want to be optimistic that this will be corrected. What's gone on is wrong, and it will be corrected.
Kelly, do you have any final thoughts on where things stand now and what you're hoping will come out of all this?
Well, I feel a hell of a lot better now than I have in the past. I feel like it's really moving forward nicely, and I'm happy with how this is all unfolding. And I thank you for giving us this opportunity to tell our story.